The Search Podcast USA Edition series is sponsored by PGC. PGC are the longest serving employer of record in North America and can compliantly engage contractors across both the US and Canada on behalf of staffing and recruitment businesses. Our turnkey solution offers a unique access point to the largest staffing market in the world. To find out more, visit us at pgcgroup.com.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. Elliott Manning here from Cayman Recruitment. We are rec specialists across the UK and US. Very, very special guest on the podcast with me this week. I've got Sean Anderson from Hoxo Media, who taught me everything that I know and is the reason why I do this today. But Sean, I'll let you take over an introduction and tell everyone who you are.
Legend. Thanks, mate. Finally invited. I'm glad to be invited finally. Bloody hell, it took long enough, hasn't it? It took me 3 years. It took 3 years of the show. But no, yeah, obviously Sean Anderson. For those who don't know, I am the founder and CEO of Hoxo. We are a branding specialist agency that exclusively helps recruitment organizations around the world brand both their organization and massively their people better.
Yeah.
Probably the best way to put it.
Definitely. So we were just discussing this a little bit, and we'll go straight into the recruitment industry at present. You know, are you seeing things changing again? Are you seeing things develop in any way in particular from your output? You speak to so many people in the industry, so you should know.
Yeah. Well, obviously right now, like the RAG podcast is, blowing up. We got, I think, over 30,000 downloads last month. We got 4,000 members of the academy, 200 agencies we're working with. So I think I've got a decent viewpoint on what's going on, and it's definitely changing, and definitely feeling it since February. It's probably quite quick, quite a sharp little decline.
Yeah.
On my academy every week, I've got so many, like hundreds and hundreds of recruiters on these calls, and I always ask them, what's the market like?
Yeah.
And then I ask them to define it and refine it and give me more specifics. I did this yesterday, and I think it's a confidence issue in a lot of recruiters' client base. Like, so they're saying there's still work there, but it's taking longer to make decisions, and that clients are just a little bit more cautious with the decisions they're making. And then the knock-on effect to recruiters is the same. I think we both agreed on this offline that, recruiters investing in talent or investing in services and suppliers, there is a little bit of a resistance to, do we spend money when we're hearing similar conversations in our client base? That said, it's still good. It's still a good market. We're still seeing a lot of clients investing with us. We're still seeing a lot of clients having record months, and the sector is in every sector, right? So there's winners and losers. I think technology has been the one that's been affected the most, probably those that work with the venture capital, privately funded and privately funded organizations. But the life science is not slowing down. Energy is not slowing down. Sustainability is not slowing down. Healthcare is not slowing down. There's so many industries that are ramping up. So long answer, but I personally have definitely felt a difference in the last 6 weeks.
Do you think that's different in the US or internationally in terms of rather than just in the UK, or is that speaking for both, do you think?
I don't think there's been as big of a downturn in Australia yet. I don't think they're feeling it as much as we are. US, I'd say there's been a bit of a sharp hit there. I think probably even more aggressive than here, because a lot of these venture capital firms and all these tech businesses that are scaling and are headquartered out, you've seen what happened with the Silicon Valley Bank and the Signature Bank, and there's a little bit of nervousness. So I think the US had a slightly harder time than the UK, and then the UK's had a harder time than the Far East. Yeah. I don't think UAE and the Middle East has had any impact yet. They're ran on a different bubble. I think the Saudi oil.
Their own world over there, aren't they?
Yeah. So I really haven't heard any negative. I was in Dubai last month. I was with I had a full day out with Robert Walters and a number of clients that I work with out there, and they're rolling in the good times right now. There's
absolutely no I've noticed that, but it's such a small niche place to be in recruitment over there, in my opinion. It's a very different world, and they keep themselves to themselves very well over there. So look, then this whole podcast has all been about the US, sponsored by PGC. Done a lot of work with the guys over there. So for me, it's more just, I'd love to understand your take on how you've seen the US develop for the recruitment industry over the last 12 months, even since earlier this year. I know you've been over there and you do a lot of work stateside. So
I'm actually going out there in 3 weeks to New York.
Where are you
New York, yeah.
Lovely.
It's a family trip, but I am going to be meeting a few clients in New York. There's no doubt about it. Let me know if you're out there. It'd be good.
I will.
I think the funny thing about the US is, I think it was portrayed, or it's still portrayed as this land of opportunity, and it's a pot of gold, right? You take your same recruiter from the UK, you bang him in the US, he does the same thing, and he doubles his income. From my experience, it's not that far away from reality, right? I genuinely believe it is I think there's a number of factors. First, it's the way recruitment organizations have been set up over there, the local firms.
Yeah.
Very different, very different from the way they remunerate. Some of them charge per hour for searches. There's all random ways of working.
Yeah.
They're not as aggressive. They're not as fast paced. They're not as motivated, I don't think, in some instances as the UK. And our, your S3 British model has gone out there and it's done bloody well, right? It's done well. Also, with 350 plus million people, they've got the same amount of recruitment firms as we have.
Yeah.
So there's less competition. It's just, it's something that is pretty logical. The other thing I'm noticing is firms doing really bloody well from the UK before they even get there. Edison Search, based down in, I think they're in Basingstoke. I had them on my show.
Cox.
Yeah, I had them on my show, and like 35, 40 people in Basingstoke only working in the US market, actually working UK hours as well. I don't know how they do it, but they're having ridiculous months. So I think the US market is a phenomenal opportunity. I think businesses should look at it. I think that the salaries are higher, recruitment fees are higher, notice periods are shorter. I mean, it's literally a no-brainer in those instances. However, I think when you've already got a business in the UK and you just decide to open up abroad, don't expect it's just going to be like double the offices is double the complexity. In fact, it's probably like 10 times as more complex your business, because you're going from one unique location perhaps to two, with different time zones, with different cultures, different client bases, different mindsets, different legalities and rules and finance rules. And it is a lot more complex than just saying I'll have one office in Manchester, one in Birmingham. Like, it's a lot more complex than that.
Yeah.
And that's where the likes of PGC come in, right? They offer the solutions to solve those problems, but it is still, it's not like just tomorrow set up in Alabama and I'm off. You've got to, you've really got to have the bandwidth, I think, to take it seriously, but great opportunity.
No, absolutely. A lot of firms at the minute, and we've noticed, who have been out there for the last maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, they're not doing as well as they should be or have been. And a lot of them are kind of going a bit more backwards than the firms that are now going over there and who are trying to take over the game. Yeah. Have you seen that transition or that change or imbalance at all?
I think it's just hunger, innit? I think it's the same as anything. Like, the new kid on the block's going to be usually a little bit hungrier, and they're going to get there and they're going to work a little bit harder. And, I think some of the bigger firms get a bit comfortable, get a little bit fat, a little bit lazy. Not lazy, but they just get a bit stuck in steady. And then the newer firms out there have got a point to prove, and they'll work it. I think it genuinely is about working a bit harder. The funny as well is, like, you look at what I do, right? And you think, sure, my business is about teaching and coaching and supporting organizations to brand themselves in a way that gets, massive interaction online, drives way more business on LinkedIn, turns them into a magnet, a well-known brand. It's funny though, the amount of firms in the US that want that service or need that service are a lot less than here.
Yeah.
Because they are literally doing the things that we used to do in the UK and making hay. Whereas in the UK and Europe, it's such a melting pot of organizations. It's so competitive. You have to be different. You have to invest in innovation. You have to think differently. Australia, really competitive. But everyone's like, to me, you must be out in the US. It's so big opportunity. It's like, yeah, but the fact the opportunity is so big actually has a negative impact on certain things like what I do.
Yeah. Because
by doing none of it, you can probably still go out there and be super successful. Whereas in the UK, I think you genuinely need to start innovating here, because it's becoming an absolute dogfight.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I think a lot of firms that, if you want, my next question to you was, why do you think firms are failing that are trying to get themselves over there? And I think it just goes back to what you said. They're not doing potentially enough here first,
Yeah.
and building that foundation and that core before they start then looking at what to do next over there and dealing with it a bit more in a strategical way rather than just trying to
It's that shiny object in it. It's
exactly.
like, some people will just drop what they're doing to move, and they don't actually have a great business. There's also the biggest challenge in our industry is people don't grow teams and step themselves out of it. Like if you're a founder that's still involved in all the deals and all the chats and all the clients, and you've got to have a finger in everything, you're not the type of business that's going to go and do well in the US, because you need to be able to go there and confidently land there, expand there, build a leadership function.
Yeah.
Are you going to move there full time, or are you going for 6 months or a year? There's loads of questions here. But if you do that and you're the rainmaker and then you go to the US, then what happens to your UK business if it hasn't got a strong? So you need to have a rock solid leadership team on both sides of the water. And again, not everyone in our industry is capable or has the skills or has done that before. Yeah. If you were a top biller in a company, launched a firm, get to 10 heads and still the rainmaker, you're going to have it harder than someone who's already built a business where they can work on it rather than in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The Search podcast is sponsored by Recruit CRM. Recruit CRM is a cloud-based recruitment software that will take your agency to the very next level. With easy-to-use features and outstanding customer support, managing clients and candidates has never been easier. Say goodbye to the hassle and hello to a streamlined process. Sign up for the 0 commitment free trial or book a free demo at recruitcrm.io today.
Absolutely. On to the next bit, Sean. What's the advice in terms of what are firms doing differently in the US internationally with their media, marketing, social presence as opposed to what they would do in the UK? Is there something that you would say they need to change up? And is the culture, obviously, in the US being so different, a big impact on that?
It kind of goes back to what I said before. I think it's kind of counterintuitive what I'm about to say, but I think the US is more open and like advanced in some of the marketing and social media. I mean, they all come from the US, right?
Yeah.
So like being online and being more socially present, I think as an American is probably a much more comfortable thing than as a Brit, because a lot of us have got that polite, don't talk about yourself complex, whereas they're like just out there and innovative.
Yeah.
As a result, British people land in the US and just work how we've always worked. I believe that that's working, but imagine a world where you did what some of these people in the UK were doing, where you're literally working hard, old school, but you're also adding that content layer. You're producing content, you're launching podcasts, you're adding value. Because I the thing I talk about now is some recruiters are offline and some are online.
Yeah. And
I think an offline recruiter has a LinkedIn account. They have thousands of connections. But if you look at the true value they offer the market, it's offline. It's in mails, it's on the phone, it's in meetings. It's not on LinkedIn, it's not online. An online recruiter does all the same, but they do add value online. Mm-hmm. They produce content, they talk about their thoughts, they generate things that can help others in their space, and they see their network on LinkedIn as a valuable asset.
Yeah.
The online recruiters are winning. Like they're billing more money. Like I've got guys doing 1 to 2 million a year that were billing 700 before, because they simply get around so many more people so much faster. Yeah. They're still doing the same work, but in 30 minutes a day, they're blowing up. So I think going to the US, working the way we've always worked, will work. It's successful. It's proven. By God, if you see that the opportunity is so big and add innovation, you're onto something special over there.
So you teach all of this on your academies, right? With how to utilize LinkedIn. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So obviously you were someone who I started working with in the pandemic, right? I launched a very different version of it back then. Yeah. What I do now is, I've worked with over 4,000 recruiters in 3 years, and there's 4 things I do to, in 6 weeks, get someone from what I'd say offline to online, right? And what it's all about is increasing that exposure and their engagement. And there's 4 things I do. So we look at the profile optimization. It's what your profile says. There's 900 million people on LinkedIn, right? Yeah. If anyone looks at your LinkedIn and it's not clear what you do, you're an idiot. Like you're missing a trick. First impressions count massively in our space. Plus, when you phone someone who doesn't know you, so you're cold calling, you're headhunting, what do you think the first thing they're going to do is? search you on LinkedIn. If
Yeah.
you're legit not clear who you are, you're not making your life easier. Second thing is, how do you get more people to your LinkedIn account? It's all well and good looking good, but it's getting that traffic, getting more people to see it, growing those connections. So I teach that process of how to tweak the way you look and then get more traffic and more connections and grow the audience, right? Second thing is about content. So again, I've developed this when I was working with you guys, but I call it the EVC method now. And it's a 3 post a week methodology that people can learn, that you don't have to have any experience of producing content. You don't need to be super confident and jumping on video or any of that. It's a way of turning your phone calls into content, which I know you understand what I'm saying, right? It's the conversations you have offline. It's knowing which and how to share them online. It's having the structure of writing a post. Like, I could write the same exact words and format it in 2 completely different ways, and one will fly on LinkedIn and one will sink.
Yeah.
People don't know what they're doing. Every recruiter I come across that works for me says one of 3 or all of the 3 things. They say, don't know where to start, don't have any time, or I'm worried about what people are going to think, like imposter syndrome, confidence issues. So we work through that, and we give them a process where they don't have to be creative. They just need to document what they're already doing, right?
Yeah.
Then we look at systemizing it all, because again, we are busy in our industry. So I give people a plan that takes 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week to execute everything on LinkedIn that builds their brand. So they can be really present in that moment for 30 minutes. And then that's it. Get on with being an offline guy. Do everything you've always done, knowing your brand's building in the background, knowing that your connections are growing. So we teach that, and it's really step by step. And then the final thing is ROI and measuring success. Most people, again, say to me, I don't genuinely know how this translates to business. They don't put the 2 together, right? And we even talked about this podcast and my podcast, and there's some of it that is a little bit like you've got to, it's hard to track, but actually there's some, if you track your stats on LinkedIn, and I'll teach them how to do it, and we put some tech in that makes it even easier. So you can genuinely see that each week your connections are growing, your views are growing, your engagement's growing.
Yeah.
We can then track that back when we look at the business outcomes of that week: CVs, interviews, jobs on, deals done, right? It's the simple metrics, not overly complicating it. So it's profile, it's content, it's systemizing it, and it's measuring the success. And when we do that, we give them a 6-week intense program. Then they get lifetime support from us. So they can work with us on an ongoing basis forever after that. But in 6 weeks, we give them that real intense knowledge that then all they're going to need from then on is tweaks and support, and, come back for refreshers and additional advice. So it's going well.
Good.
And I do believe that more firms heading out to the US should take the opportunity to be more present, because if you're doubling your revenue by just doing what you've always done, imagine what you'll do if you're more present. If thousands of people see you every day, every week, I mean, it's just logic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that firsthand, from doing it myself for a while now, how much of a difference it does make in a positive way, and financial as well, to be putting the effort in to do this. You can't just be a recruiter, in my opinion, and just sit there cold calling database, cold calling job adverts. You need to do something different. And if you're going to go to the States, they are so receptive of all of this stuff. They love it. They engage with it. They love it. They enjoy it. They want to see it. And in a competitive market, I think it's necessary. In fact, 100%. I know it is. 100%. So, look, just really goes on to the last point, Sean, really. Just how's Hoxo doing? What's the plans for the business this year, next year? How have you seen things, take off? Because it's been an unbelievable journey, right?
Yeah, it's been good. I think we're now sat at 35 people. 75% of my team are in South Africa. So I've got over 20 people in South Africa. I've got a couple in Portugal. The rest are in the UK. Yeah. We're all actually heading out to Cape Town in June as a whole business to meet each other. So I started hiring in South Africa in the pandemic. Been an amazing decision. Got great people in Portugal as well. I don't know, those locations are a bit random, but it worked. Yeah. And we've never all been in the same place. So I've been to Cape Town. Some of them have been to the UK, but we've never. So we're all going out in June, which is going to be amazing. Half-year party. We're also launching our new brand. So we're rebranding. We're changing the logo and stuff slightly. I mean, I've got it tattooed there, so it can't be much different, but there is going to be an evolution. Yeah. And as a company, we're really clear. We're rock solid on what we do now, which is personal branding and company branding. So if an agency wants us to rebrand the company and develop their brand identity, the story, the website. Most of the clients we get on that side come 5 years in, there's 30 of them, they're doing really well, and they look at the website and it's like they wrote it in their bedroom in week 1. So we bring them to life, and that involves like, you know, a launch party, it involves stash and kit and getting the internal and the external involved in launching a brand. We're doing that for ourselves in June, which is going to be sick. And then we also have the personal branding stuff, and we can coach it, but also we don't publicize it very often, but we manage it. We have a ghostwriting service. So there's a lot of recruitment leaders out there in the market that you think are writing their own content and they're blowing up, but it's us behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is most often a client comes into us and we start training the team, and then the leadership level who've got the biggest connections, the most knowledge, the most gravitas, they can be the ones that sometimes don't take to it, or they're just too busy or whatever. So we'll guarantee their work, we'll manage it for them, which then drives engagement and adoption through the company. And then we might at some point look at refreshing the anchor, which is, you think about it, if all your people are out there doing all this cool stuff on LinkedIn, you're going to get a lot more traffic to your website and your internal, you know, so you need to make sure that anchor is rock solid. So one without the other over time is a challenge, but the rebrand stuff is not something you do every year. You know, I might do it every 5 to 10 years. Whereas the ongoing content stuff is, I'm yet to meet a recruitment firm that's got it locked down before they work. Like, they just don't have it.
No, and I see it a lot, and I tell every business owner they need to really step it up, because we need that from them in order to sell their business and who they are and what they're all about. And if they don't have anything, we find it near impossible. You know,
it's really hard. Yeah, of course it is.
Very difficult.
They reckon the modern job seeker looks for at least an hour of content on a company they're interested in, right? An hour of content, which if you've got a couple of bits on your website of like old school blogs, I mean, is that really going to convert someone? You might have an Instagram page with a few pretty pictures of your Ibiza trip, but people want to hear, they want to listen, they want to read, they want to feel connected to the business. They want to build a digital relationship. And if you're not doing it, your competition will.
Absolutely. And for those listening, business owners, get your social media, your marketing sorted out. It makes us rec to recs. It makes our lives a lot easier. It makes us sell your opportunities better. Speak to the guys at Hoxo. This is why I want to do this podcast, Sean, is because there's a whole big gap in the market of businesses that just aren't doing things and keeping up with the times. And especially if they're going to go and do stuff in the US, they need to. They just can't go over and think they're just going to make money and just do recruitment. They can, obviously, won't take that away from them, but they could add an extra, as you said, 30, 50% on their revenue just purely by giving themselves a bit more of an identity over there. Because it's a big place and it's easy to do, in my opinion.
Mate, I mean, I was a 700 grand contract biller in London, right? I know how to do the job in the old way, and I loved it and I was great at it. But knowing what I know now, the way I work now, the way I get people to work now, I mean, you couldn't pay me enough to go back to just doing that. Like, it's just a different game. You're in a different game when you get it. And I'm loving the shift in the industry, but we're still not even scratching the surface. There's so much opportunity, which is amazing.
Of course. Well, look, I know loads of firms that work with you guys and they, rave about everything that you do. Unbelievable name and, presence in the industry. If anyone wants to talk to Sean, just reach out. His details will be all over the podcast links that go out to all the network. And Sean, look, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, mate. And thank you for showing me how to do all of this, helping me through this journey. It's been amazing. It really has. And thank you very much for your time as well.
All right, mate. See you soon.
You take care. Thanks, Sean.